let's watch the Willie video. Here it is, boys.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, Willie here. Well, here we are, the review. With BlizzConline in 1 month and the expected Burning Crusade announcement to follow, it's time we take a look back at classic World of Warcraft. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Suffice to say, for every player who's given it a go, it's been an experience, and it's probably left you with some memories that you will hold on to. I think back for myself, when I first started playing World of Warcraft back midway through vanilla, how I approached the game then was just so different to my aspirations of what I want from it these days. Back then, I didn't have any lofty goals of raiding to achieve any particular PvP rating. I was quite happy to run around Teldrassil, tame various different cats. I leveled a bunch of different characters to various levels, tried them all out, and hopped in some battlegrounds. I visited the Horde cities as an alliance player.
Dude, I've never really been an alt Andy. I always kind of only had one, maybe two characters. I think a lot of people when they play the game, they might have like 160 and a bunch of characters that are not 60 that they never actually level all the way. They just like leveling alts. That's actually kind of what Kathy does. Kathy has a fuck ton of like random mid-30, mid-40 characters all over the place. She just likes leveling, dude. She's just a leveler.
I tried to solo a bunch of different dungeons. It was just sort of whatever was in front of me in the moment, which I was just experiencing then, because frankly, I knew next to nothing about the game, and in many ways that's what makes it special. These days, however, the game may be somewhat similar, not an exact replica, I think we can all agree on that. However, the person behind the screen, me, and I'm sure this will be the case for many of you guys, is dramatically different back when you first started WoW, be it in vanilla or a different expansion. So when Classic was announced, I took this as my chance to really fill in on all that stuff which I had missed. The raiding, to get more involved in PvP, to actually finish up leveling every class to 60 instead of stopping a bunch of them halfway through. And I was so excited about it, I used all my spare time to start writing these class guides, which I didn't really expect many people to want to watch given the quality, which was I mean, why did I film in this resolution? I literally didn't realize I wasn't filming in the proper resolution until somebody mentioned it in the comments. I remember even getting a bunch of other comments saying, oh, the resolution's very nostalgic. Are you doing that for any particular reason? I was like, what do you mean? This is just how the game looks like. So yeah, I've definitely had a lot to learn over the time when I first start picking up making videos, as well as just the classic knowledge I've had to gain in general, because I was a person that never really touched the private server scene. I've always just played retail, and if I get bored with that, I just go play something else, to be honest. But the private server scene definitely has shaped World of Warcraft Classic, not just in terms of the metagaming that we see nowadays, but in terms of it actually existing. If Nostarius never got to that size that it did, if Blizzard never felt they needed to close it down, if the petition never happened for players to say, look Blizz, do this, if Mark Kern never did that presentation on behalf of the player base, petitioning directly to Mike Morheim to say, come on Mike, make this game happen. Maybe. Look how many people want it. We may never have got it. And I did do a review after 1 year of Classic, which looked at a bit of the history, I guess, its run up to it actually existing, which I'll link below if you're interested in that, but I'm not going to go over that again here. We're going to focus on the game as it's...
I had some guy, this is like a year ago, he was trying to join Power. A new recruit, he said, yeah, I was in the guild that got server first Kel'Thuzad on Nostarius. I'm pretty good. I was like, dumbass. Naxxramas never even fucking came out on Nostarius. Neither did AQ40, by the way. Didn't even fucking come out on that server.
In front of us, the decisions Blizzard have made, where it's gone right, and where it's not met expectations. With all that said, let's make a start on this, shall we? Starting at the start, we have launch day and leveling. Now, for myself personally, the launch day went very well. The server I was playing on then was Gehenna's, which had a relatively smooth start off. By the time I was streaming and I heard of a bunch of other players coming into the chat who had been picked off into absolutely enormous queues, something Blizzard had been trying to warn us was going to happen for some time, but then again it was kind of an issue they had created by just having too few servers at the outset, especially PvP servers. And that first time through the leveling was a really good one. Every single dungeon was constantly active and people were just flowing in and out of them all day, every day. You could even find tanks for dungeons without having to offer them some kind of gold incentive. But of course a lot of people were looking for the most fast and efficient ways to level. After all, when you're throwing this number of people at a common problem, some pretty creative solutions tend to be unearthed. And I remember in the early days, the raid-wide XP for being in a dungeon wasn't being calculated correctly, and people were actually in parties of 7 clearing the dungeons at the same time.
Yeah, we were doing that.
A few of these groups because I just wanted to see what it was all about.
Yeah, we were doing that.
In time, Blizzard did nerf the 7-man dungeon groups though to give less XP, which of course gave rise to the next best thing, the spell cleave, and to a lesser extent the melee cleave. Spell cleave, get a priest and a bunch of mages, gather everything up, press AoE, repeat. No other class could match the AoE power of a mage, which we've seen in several other areas of the game now that we'll no doubt get onto. Melee cleaves were much of a similar thing, with melee classes pretty much needing the Ravager item to AoE just to a lesser extent than mages. And remember, both of these were a thing before boosting happened, because well, boosting doesn't really happen pre-60. Just remember that before boosting, it was all about the cleaves. At least it was a bit more of a social thing, I guess you could say that much. But for the regular questing experience, I think it's quite a strong one. I know a lot of people don't like the pacing of it and just find it very slow and tedious how you're constantly ping-ponging between different continents and zones, but that's something which I quite like, and it becomes more palatable the more that you do it. Only the quests are just your RPG bread and butter, kill and collect quests, but that's not something I mind. But of course, once you've finished up your dungeon cleaves, once you've finally got to level 60, once you've got your prebis from dungeons, it's time to start hitting up the end game. Let's talk about raiding in classic WoW. Raids were made out to be those hardcore challenges that you heard from stories back in the day. Steep opposition that would put up a severe challenge to even...
I feel like I hate to say it, I feel like the only people that thought classic raiding content was gonna be hard were like boomers that haven't played World of Warcraft in 15 years. Like if you've played retail, if you've played any expansion ever since vanilla, or if you've ever played a private server, like you kind of knew what it was going to be. Like it was not going to be, like no one thought that this was going to be that fucking hard, right?
The most
But I'll say this, like one of the most appealing parts for a lot of people about classic is that the raids are kind of chill, they're kind of easy. You can, just hang out with the boys. You don't have to go crazy min-max, crazy tryhard. Your like drops of sweat are dripping as you're dodging, mythic raid mechanics. You can just fucking show up to the raid, you relax, it's fun, you have a good time with the boys, you wipe, whatever, who cares? It's the social aspect, and I think that's why people like classic raiding more than anything. Yep.
Practiced player. Finally, we would see whether there was any weight behind people's words back from vanilla saying raiding's come a long way, but it doesn't quite capture how it was when it first started. But just as it's been with so many other areas of the game, raiding is one that's been completely...
You say, nah, man, those people quit. I didn't quit. They're just on Peggle. And like they're just not on the servers like Fairlina and Gehenna's. There are like Peggle is just, it's just people having fun, just like playing the game. It's so refreshing, actually. Like I kind of thought that people didn't exist like that either. Then I came to Peggle, and it's just people having fun, chilling, like playing the game, having a good time, relaxing, goofing around. It's super, super nice, actually. It's way better.
Solved. Ragnaros was defeated within 5 days from the launch of the actual game. From the character creation screen to having completed the first raid tier. Onyxia was also defeated the same day. And in the days and weeks to come, plenty of other guilds completed their first clear on tier 1. And many players started to find out, actually this raiding lark isn't so difficult after all. Blackwing Lair once again was cleared in under 1 hour from launch. A number of guilds did see more progression on this raid, especially from Firemore, who ended up being much more of a challenging encounter than anticipated. AQ40 was the alleged big jump in difficulty, but similar to the 2 other previous raid tiers, it also fell somewhat short, though there was...
AQ40 was... Is AQ40 easier than Blackwing Lair? AQ40 is not hard. Like, dude, AQ40 is so fucking easy. Like, AQ40 is so fucking easy. You hate... Honestly, man, I'll say it before, I'll say it again, man. The hardest raid, when you are at that tier, when you have that appropriate gear, the hardest raid in Classic is Molten Core. Molten Core, when you're wearing blue gear and a couple pieces of MC gear, Molten Core is harder than Nax. That is true. Molten Core wearing pre-raid bis is harder than Nax wearing AQ40 bis. MC is the hardest raid in Classic. That is the fucking truth.
There's definitely some more mechanics included by the later bosses, especially the likes of Twin Emperors, Cthulhu, and the 2 more challenging optional bosses, Oro and Viscidus. bringing us around to Naxxramas, which for many players is the first time that there has actually been consistent progression throughout the duration of the raid, and there are many factors which go into that. Of course, I'm sure we've all heard the stories of back in the day that only 0.1% of the player base actually managed to complete a full clear of this legendary tier of raiding. On numerous online resources, knowledge of the raid in advance, what kind of resistance gear we'd need, how many tanks 4 horsemen requires, as well as the ever-evolving speedrun scene from the top tier guilds have made Naxxramas, while still a challenge, less so than it was anticipated to be. All of those various issues the players had back in vanilla were no longer prevalent today with our private...
Though, keep in mind, when they were going for World First Naxx, when Naxx came out, Naxx shit on all of those top guilds other than Progress. Progress's first Naxxramas run was beautiful. They played so fucking well. All the other top guilds, the private server Andes, Super Sweat guilds, Ape, Song, like all those guys, they got blown the fuck out. They got shit on. Progress fucking owned. Progress absolutely owned. It was impressive to be applauded, to be saluted. Progress owned on the first day of Naxx.
Server scene, our min-maxing of classes and knowledge of what itemization to use, consumables, world buffs, knowing the raid mechanics. It's rare to see a game get min-maxed as hard as has been the case with Classic, when realistically it's not all that.
Progress cheated with character swapping. Who decided that? Mitos? You know, in Race to World First Mythic raids, they're doing roster swaps depending on the boss also. They're roster swapping. That's how people play the game. That's how you play the game at a high level. Of course the losers are going to complain about that. Of course they're going to be mad about that, dude. Of course they are, man. It was fucking 5-head super brain to think about. All right, Saffron's going to be crazy. Let's bring in a couple extra Holy Paladins. That's smart as fuck. That's smart. It's cheating. Shut the fuck up, dude. What the fuck are you talking, bro? What the fuck are you talking about?
Difficult the deeper you go down that alley. What Classic did bring back was the 40-man raid feel, which Blizzard made the decision to move away from in the Burning Crusade. And whilst having a raid on an epic size can be enjoyable, I think it's starting to get pretty clear why they made this choice now. I've always thought of 40-man raiding something like this. Let's say you have raids on an epic scale, raids which are challenging, and raids which are enjoyable, and then with 40-man I feel as though you can only ever pick 2 of those. Of course fun is subjective, but incorporating challenging personal mechanics which 40 people would have to see isn't something I think would go down too well. There are definitely some benefits of a smaller raid team, not just in terms of in-raid, but on the logistics side as well. It's not easy to keep 40 people going consistently, especially with the costs associated with raiding. Whilst the earlier tiers were enjoyable, perhaps that was a bit mitigated by the ease of which you could clear the raid, whereas for me Naxxramas has been a real step up in terms of the challenge and enjoyment.
Straight up, dude, Naxxramas is brain dead. Naxxramas is fucking easy. Like, the only problem with Naxxramas is it is the most consumable heavy raid. That is it. The mechanical difficulty of Naxx, anything in Naxx. Naxx is easy. It is an easy raid. It's just the most expensive, consumable heavy raid. You just need a lot of gold if you want to perform well in Naxx. That's what it is. Naxxramas mechanically is not fucking hard. Like I said, man, Molten Core. If you're doing Molten Core in Molten Core Priebus, Molten Core is harder than Naxx in Naxxramas Priebus. I stand by it. I will stand by it. Molten Core is the hardest raid of Classic WoW. That is a fucking hot fact. That is a fact.
I've had from it personally, and I'm glad that we've ended on a high for raiding in Classic. But of course you can't talk about raiding without talking about gold. Raiding ain't cheap, and for once with Naxxramas we found out that the actual costs and preparation that were anticipated have ended up being required. So let's have a little talk about how the economy is shaped out in Classic. Remember back during the start of Classic when people were investing...
Listen, man, guys like Rocam here, MC harder than Naxx, thanks for the laugh, retard. You know how I know you got to 60 2 months after Classic came out, joined a guild that already had Naxx on farm and got boosted, or MC. You know how I know you got to level 60 2 months after Classic came out, joined a guild that already had MC on farm and got boosted through MC and never did MC progression with blue gear and green gear? It's because you say dumb fuck comments like that in my chat. You're like, have you ever... I'm done, man. I can't respond to him. I know he's wrong. We all know he's wrong. He's stupid as fuck, and he's wrong as fuck too. I'm done.
So much into items that they expected to go up in later phases. Server
Boosted
transferring without
ass.
to move Black Lotus, picking up Edge Masters for under 100 gold, and in Classic, gold.
Dude, in phase 1, I bought like 80 Black Lotus. 35, 40 gold. Ooh, dude. I was rich. I still am rich. That was a good investment, man.
Matters a whole.
And now people are saying, listen, dude, I am a classic WoW economic genius. I've never not been rich in this game. And now I'm doing the Skullflame Shield. People are like, oh, Staysafe, you don't know what you're talking about. Skullflame Shield. Okay, stay poor. Man, it is what it is. Listen, man, here I'm out here giving my economic advice to all the people around the world. And now people are saying, listen, you know what? It's okay. You can be poor. It's all right. It is what it is.
Lot.
That's the way it is.
More than in any other version of the game, because it's truly needed for all aspects. Leveling up your abilities, your mount, be it normal or epic, consumables for raiding and for PvP, bandages, or even emergent gameplay like buying world buffs and getting summoned all around the world to save time and effort. The economy in Classic, though, has grown to a size which I think not that many players could have reasonably anticipated, even those who have played numerous private servers. Back in vanilla, an epic mount was pretty epic. A guy with thousands of gold to spare was crazy. A guy with a 5-digit number of gold was unthinkable.
Damn.
A guy with a 6-digit number of gold was literally a unicorn. We've had items that have actually been addressed and changed over time, especially Black Lotus, which started to spike above 200 gold around the start of Phase 2, as mafias and bodders closed in around the market and made it extremely difficult for your average player to compete. In fact, we saw the amount of spawns doubled and spread around new spawn locations in all the zones, which is just one of many side effects of having our enormous servers. And as time has gone on, we're really starting to see all the side effects that having servers this size has. Not just with Black Lotus anymore, but even your regular herbs have become much more difficult to farm. And this late into Classic and the gold cycle, it does really feel like you have to run GDKP raids, or there's not that many ways to maintain as an individual player. Personally, I haven't had to farm since around Phase 4, as I put in a lot of preparation at that point in time, and then I've just been able to buy and sell stuff as phases come out. But these days, arcane crystals are crashing.
I mean, like, every class still has a gold farm they can do that's like at least 100 gold an hour. Any class can, like, you don't have to do GKP. You can farm 100 gold per hour. It's not that bad. I don't know. More? Yeah, definitely more. Listen, man, this is maybe a super mega hot nuclear holocaust take. Blizzard should ban GDKPs. And of course, people would still try to do them under the table, but if Blizzard says, listen, no more GDKPs, it's against TOS, that would stop 99% of them. They should stop them, because all it's doing is fostering and encouraging gold buying. People that are showing up to GDKPs and spending 7k, 10k, 100k on a single item, do you think they farmed their gold at 100 gold an hour? Or do you think they didn't even farm that gold at 500 gold an hour? They're buying gold. It's giving gold buyers a place to spend their gold. It's like in a perfect situation, if there's no gold buying or gold selling or botting or any of this, GDKPs are fine because it's all legitimate gold normal everyday players have farmed. But the second gold buying is in the mix, GDKP is a fucking money laundering scheme. That is the goddamn fact of the matter. I hate to say it. It is the fucking truth.
As the demand disappears, and only real instance farms still feel good. But
the truth
then
hurts.
Why bother to sink time into that when you can put your ultra gold bid run and in the space of a few hours come out with hundreds or even thousands of gold in some cases, which I'm not entirely sure bodes well for TBC. I've covered it quite a few times on this channel, but Blizzard hasn't done a good enough job to stop people botting, nor to punish people from buying gold.
Lol, you're super naive if you think that would solve shit or that Blizzard cares at all about GDKP since they're still in retail. I mean, people said the same thing about multi-boxing. Multi-boxing was in the game for 15 years, and then out of the blue, they stopped it. Like, it's not unprecedented. Do I think they're ever going to come out and stop GDKP? No, I don't. I think you're probably right in that regard. But I also thought that they would never stop multi-boxing. And then to address your first point, you think that would help anything even if they did? Yeah, of course it would help. Like I don't know if you know this. Like, doing drugs, doing methamphetamine is illegal. Some people still do it. Most people don't do it. Laws are in place for a reason. Of course there will be people that try to break the law. Of course there will be those people that try to keep on doing it. But it's enough to deter most people, because if you're caught doing it, you get a suspension or you get a ban. That's enough to deter most people. Of course, there will be some people that if it were made against the rules, people would still try it. But it would be enough to deter most people. And it's better to have an 80% crime reduction than a 0% crime reduction. That's my take on that.
Drugs are bad.
Drugs are bad. Also true. Crouchy, thank you very much. That's true.
Old. And to this day, I can do a /who in BRD and see rogues in there all day, every day, still printing currency. On top of our gold bid runs, which are selling items regularly for 5, if not 6-digit sums of gold. But this isn't just necessarily a classic thing either. This has really been the case with retail as well as of recently. I suppose it is all relative to a certain degree. If items sell for more, a player should be able to farm more and keep up in gold. But just the server size and lack of resources are really coming into this equation and making life difficult. Between mages boosting, pulling entire instances and printing money, gold bid runs, people buying gold, even your average player has so much more wealth than would have been possible in vanilla. And we'll have to see if there's any measures taken moving over to the Burning Crusade to stop the huge transfer of wealth, but I wouldn't really expect it. That remains to be seen. But speaking about gold bid runs...
This guy has never heard of Portugal's drug laws that are being adapted even in the US now. I live in a state where every drug has been decriminalized, and I spent 2.5 years working at a drug and alcohol rehabilitation clinic doing drug testing. It is a good thing that methamphetamine is illegal. Methamphetamine, heroin should be illegal. It is a good thing for society. You should not have heroin be legal. It's a bad idea. It's a bad idea.
And especially raiding. Let's talk a little bit about gear, because I think it's something which is very unique in Classic. Gear, purples, blues, dungeons, raids is an absolutely integral part of Classic, and whilst people running around in full epics is frankly more common than I would have ever anticipated, people still get really invested into getting the most out of their character. It's one of the reasons I've never really made any videos regarding gear on stuff, because if you dare suggest that something which provides a 2 DPS increase is in any way equal to the clearly inferior option, you're going to have an essay on your hands pointing out the error of your ways.
True.
Which is kind of funny when many classes rotation boils down to press a button or press several different ranks of a button. What you're doing functionally most of the time is extremely simple. Well, at least in PvE content anyway. In PvP you can absolutely make the opposite argument where you have an enormous array of gear. Things like Tidal Charm, the engineering trinkets, rocket helms, rocket boots, and so on and so forth. As for me, gear's been strange.
I'm not going to say who. There was a mage in power. I made the decision, and I had Rock Fury bracers. I made the decision, I'm going to wear bracers of Arcane Accuracy going into next Rammus and AQ40 because most of the damage done that I'm doing in these encounters is actually trash damage, and I'm hellfiring a lot. And as a Warlock, I'd rather have a little bit of extra stamina, which scales with world buffs and kings. I'd rather have extra stamina, a little bit of survivability, considering I'm AoEing, and potentially taking more damage, considering I'm AoEing. And so as a Warlock, I'm going to wear Arcane Accuracy instead of Rock Fury, because Rock Fury only gives a 0.5 DPS increase on single target, and it's actually a pretty big detriment on AoE target fights. And so I decided that, and so I was wearing these, and this mage in the guild, I'm not going to name names, blew the fuck up. He was spurging out that I was not wearing Rock Fury. He said I was not caring about the performance of the raid, that I wasn't trying as hard as I could be. And then I go and pull up like progress logs and a bunch of other logs for other good guilds. And surprise, surprise, what are all the warlocks wearing? They're wearing Arcane Accuracy. And I showed this guy and he's like, like, I hate, there is a portion of the Classic community, I just hate them. Like people like that, they are the worst single personality type. They are like borderline fucking psychopaths. They are psychopaths. It is, I don't know if it stems from having literally nothing else in their life at all that they value or can feel like they've accomplished. And so their entire ego, their entire persona is from thinking incorrectly that they're going to get 0.5 DPS more in a Classic WoW raid. But holy fuck, man, like these people like that are literally insufferable. insufferable. And you know there's nothing else. Like, you know that these people sit in their room, in a dark room, smoke cigarettes, spit in a can, piss in a bucket, poop in a sock, beat their wife, they don't have a wife, they beat their mom. Honey, I made you tendies 30 minutes late, bitch. Psh, I guarantee you this is these motherfuckers. Disgusting, bro. Disgusting. I'm playing the video.
On one hand, you love to see an upgrade. On the other, you don't really need it for anything just beyond PvP passing or speedruns. An upgrade makes easy easier, not hard easier. It's kind of like a player in retail who wants heroic level gear, but then all they do is world quests and pet battles. I suppose the way you get gear as well and the relevance of old raids is quite different. In retail, as soon as a new raid is out, the old raid is old news, which has been the case for many expansions now. In Classic, you're probably still running Molten Core for bindings, you're probably still running Blackwing Lurf for things like Tear, Mind Quickening Gem, the Axe from Nefarian, or I have no idea how you say its name. Each week it's much more like you're doing a world tour of all the raids instead of just the active tier. And whilst it does keep the old content relevant, perhaps many players get to a point where you've seen the inside of Molten Core one too many times. I guess you could see this as a positive, or a negative. Regardless though, let's move on and talk about an area of the game many people are extremely invested in. Player versus player.
Ooh.
Back in vanilla, I used to be a big PvPer. In fact, that was the main area of the game for me. I never really interacted with the raid content. I had a lot more fun playing Battlegrounds, exploring what different classes can do, trying to twink, just all relevant areas that PvP brought into the game. And back then I played on a PvE server, so this time around I thought, well, I'm gonna fix that. And
did you guys have this on your server, or was this Farlina only? We had people doxing each other. We had people DDoSing each other. We had people not only doxing, but saying that they were going to mail bombs to each other's houses for breaking brackets or for trying to take a bracket slot that wasn't theirs. We had all that shit on Farlina. All that. You had that on your server too? Man, Farlina was pretty fucking bad. It was, this is Generation 1, Generation 2 ranking, early Phase 2, early Phase 3. It was pretty fucking bad, man. It was pretty fucking bad.
And roll PvP. And I can say it's been a bit hit and miss at times. We started off Phase 1 with perhaps the most authentic version of World PvP that we're going to see, to be honest. Nobody was too far ahead of each other. All zones were really active, so people were camping or ganking. Generally speaking, you could get some of your other faction along to help you. There was a lot more contesting of quest mobs and resources out in the world, as well as 1v1 encounters where it just really boiled down to what your class could do instead of just what you're able to bring along to a fight. This, of course, all changed in Phase 2, with Blizzard opting, no changes, to follow the release schedule from vanilla. The honor and ranking system was introduced ahead of Battlegrounds, which gave rise to an absolute chaotic, non-stop open world battleground for a month. As an Alliance player on Gehennas then, the boat in Menethil Harbour was basically off limits. South Shore versus Taran Mill became an absolute war zone for the first few days until players started to divide themselves out and farm in different zones to maximize their honor gains. On some servers where the population was skewed enough, you could take a good 20 to 30 minutes to get inside Black Rock Mountain. A similar amount of time to get from the entrance to the inside of Dire Mall. Every single flight path was camped. Not even your faction capitals were safe, as people did any measures possible to try and grind out a few more precious honor points. Of course, all of this is just a side effect of how the honor and ranking system works, and it encourages this kind of activity. And I've said it a number of times before, but I think the honor and ranking system was one of the biggest mistakes that Blizzard made in
Phase 2 open world PvP. You might remember this. If I was ever in a spot farming honor that other people wanted to have, because like there were really good spots to farm honor and there were not so good spots. So if I was ever farming honor in a really good spot where there was a lot of horde players coming through, you could kill them easily. We're talking stuff like Black Rock Mount and stuff like that. There's some other good spots, but because they knew I was streaming, and it even happened off stream, like, dude, I'm not even streaming. I would have people run next to me, like run a character next to my character in game and just start spamming the N-word or spamming gamer words, hoping that it would pop up on my screen. And because I would be streaming, that I would have to leave. That I would leave the spot. Just gamer words spamming, hoping that I would leave the spot. And like, there were times I'm like, dude, I'm not even streaming. Like, great, cool. I would just turn off my chat bubbles. It's all good, dude. But yeah, dude, I've had people, this is way back then. If I'd ever pull my chat window out to show something on stream, there'd be people waiting, just waiting. All right, there's the chat and N-word. Just hoping. All right, Staysafe brought his chat out, and there it is. Just waiting for it. Anyway, let me tell you. It was great. Ranking in Classic was great. It was the greatest thing ever.
Yeah. Classic. Sure, you can have poor class balance, you can have consumables which are just clearly wildly overpowered, metas forming around world buffs, and yes, a lot of it's pretty degenerate stuff, but nothing more so than forcing your faction to fight against your own faction, and the winner is the guy that can throw in the most time over a period of months and months. It simply creates a very unhealthy environment, which is why they got rid of it in the Burning Crusade pre-patch. And to remedy this in Classic, Blizzard brought out Battlegrounds early, Alterac Valley and Warsong Gulch. And I'm sure if you played back then, you remember how the flow of the battleground changed. On that first few weeks, it was Alliance all the way. Both factions just ran straight past each other to the opposite's leader and tried to take them out and just claim the win as soon as possible. But Alliance were more effective at doing it, mainly because they were able to pre-made through coordination on Discord. Horde did not have that luxury because, as very much expected, Horde players had queues for Battlegrounds, so they couldn't do this, as back then there was no in-game way to queue as a
Alliance and Alterac Valley, well, how it used to work, and this is before Blizzard removed BG numbers, so it is to say, Alterac Valley 7 has popped, Alterac Valley 9 has popped. You would join a huge, this is my Alterac Valley ranking experience. You would join a huge cross-server Discord. It had people from Whitemane and Herod and Ferlina, and typically they would only invite people that were trusted or of a certain rank or whatever. So if you were in the clique, if you were connected, you could join these big servers, hundreds of players from a ton of different servers. And you'd be in a lobby, and someone would go, it actually got to a point where they had bots. Someone would type like !bot in the Discord chat, and it would go, everyone queue on 3, 2, 1, queue, and then you all queue. Everyone's on different servers. You're on different servers, and you all queue at the same time. And then let's say my queue pops me for Alterac Valley 7. Okay, so I type in the chat !AV7. It moves me to an invisible channel called Alterac Valley 7, and then everyone else that got the Alterac Valley 7 queue is moved down in that channel also, and we say, all right, we have 2 tanks, we have 5 healers, we have 20 DPS, all right, we're good to go. And then you queue in, and that way you can force a pre-made into Alterac Valley, so the Alliance would win every single time because we'd have at least, and then if you only got like 7 or 8 people in that game, you'd all say, all right guys, we only have 7 people, drop the queue, don't take the queue, go back up to the lobby and try again. And you'd go in, and if you got like more than 25 people or 30 people, you'd all take the queue and you go in and you do it, and you just win. And you would just win in, in like 7 minutes or 6 minutes. You just go right to Drek and do it. And all the tanks were prepped on how to tank, where to tank, to heal. Like we were all on the same page. So it was, yeah, I remember I got Exalted Alterac Valley on my Warlock in, I don't know, like 36 hours. Like we won for 3 weeks or 2 weeks that I did Alterac Valley ranking. I don't think I lost a single Alterac Valley. It was like 18 hours a day, winning 6, 5, 7 minute Alterac Valleys back to back to back every single day. This is when I just watched a lot of Netflix. I was ranking Q and BGs like that, and just watching Netflix. It was great. It was fucking great.
Pre-made.
Except it was terrible.
As time went on, Blizzard tried to stop people pre-mading, Warsong Gulch became more popular, people stopped ranking, and Horde players worldwide adapted to these strategies Alliance were throwing at them. That win rate, which was so high on the Alliance side that you could go from neutral to Exalted in a single day, which is not even an exaggeration, completely swung the other way around, which is unfortunately how it's been left. That on top of us getting a later version of Alterac Valley with no mines, no reinforcements, a lot of the different areas of the game being nerfed, and it's not quite been the experience it was made out to be. In fact, on the Horde side now in some regions, if it's not the holiday weekend for the Battleground, AV just either doesn't pop or can take easily 2 to 3 hours, which gave rise to much more pre-mades taking place to try and grind out the honor points, which I only did to rank 10, which is pretty limited experience, and I chose to do that solo as well. And something you really do realize in classic PvP is you must be part of the consumables meta if you really want to compete. They're simply too powerful to miss out on top of needing engineering, really. Once again, this is one of those things you could see from either side. You could say it's kind of annoying that you can't just play your class and let your class stand on its own 2 legs and you require all these extra things. On the other side, aside, the game offers such an enormously wide variety of cool and unique toys to amplify what your character can do, so I'll let you make your choice on that one. But maybe the lack of balance, the freedom of consumable and trinket usage, makes classic PvP what it is though. So we'll leave it there, because a very important part of PvP, especially if you're going for those high ranks, is the people you run into along the way. The community in Classic. The community is interesting, I guess.
Premades are for pussies. Yeah, I wish there was like some sort of premade prevention at this point. Maybe like limiting premades both in Warsong Gulch and Arathi Basin to maybe 5 people at most. So you could be in a premade, like you can play with your friends and kind of hedge your bets. Like I think to a certain degree you should be rewarded in PvP for having that social dynamic where you make friends, you have a team, you're in Discord, you're communicating. I like that benefits you to a certain degree, but if you're 10 players, like you're just going to shit on everyone all the time. So I think maybe limiting it to 5. And then there's a little bit of like variability. And then if you're not in a pre-made and you solo queue, maybe you can queue into a game where you're on, like you're with another 5-man pre-made, so you kind of benefit from that. It'll be kind of nice, right? I think 5 is a good middle ground, but you can't blame people for wanting to be as efficient as they possibly can, right? You can't blame people. If people are trying to farm honor, they're going to try to do it the best way possible. Even in TVC, you're going to have people pre-mating sometimes, because to buy all of the arena gear and the honor gear, you have to have a lot of battleground marks. So if you're going to buy your rank 1 gear or your pre-rank or season 1 gear or your pre-season 1 blue gear, you need a lot of BG marks, and you're going to have people pre-mating to get their marks also. It's not going to be as big of a deal as it is in Classic, but people still pre-made in TBC. It's going to happen still a little bit.
Unlike retail, where every server is cross-server, in Classic, your server is your home. I'm sure you
can't blame people for being absolute spurgs instead of playing the game for fun. I mean, I'm not the type of guy that's going to dictate like what the right fun is versus the wrong fun. If people like min-maxing, that's what's fun for them. I'm not going to tell them that's wrong. In the same way, I don't think they should tell you or me for being casual that that's not the right way to have fun. Like, that's just my take on that. I don't know.
Can tell me
there's no right or wrong way.
Stories about drama, individuals who become known. That one guy who's logged in literally all the time, who always stands in the same spot. Like, what? Why does he do it? Nobody knows, but he's online all the time. He's always there. You know the guy I'm talking about. But from open world camping, ninjaing crafting materials from blacksmithing or enchanting, ninjaing items in raids or in dungeons, camping capitals to dispel people, putting portals on top of songflowers so people can't click them, Discord server drama, Scarab Lord fiascos around people spam reporting a player to get them auto-banned, cross-faction collusion, world boss
Damn, look at that. That's badass.
You just run your whole raid team.
That's badass.
Camping Darkmoon Fair all day to stop the opposite faction from getting buffs. Yes, despite what you've heard, the opposite faction is always worse than your
centipede.
one. Don't believe anybody who says differently. Spam CCing players just to annoy them, ganking, camping, killing opposite faction or neutral NPCs to stop people from handing quest objectives in, holding Warsong Gulch Battlegrounds hostage out of spite, taking the flag out of bounds. Let's just say that Classic is quite the griefer's paradise. More so than, well, just about anything I've ever played since forever, I guess. Sure, there are toxic games out there. I used to play League of Legends, but the scope for grief is pretty small. In Classic, it is absolutely enormous. And this is just amped up 10 times on PvP servers where that constant PvP tag, players will use.
Who has queued a League of Legends game? And I don't know, like maybe you'll be playing support and you'll accidentally take their kill in bot lane, or like just like something dumb happens, right? It happens. And they're like, okay, did you do that? You know what? You don't deserve to win. You deserve to lose. I don't care if it costs me my own rating. I'm feeding. I'm walking down mid. You don't fucking deserve it. Fuck you. And they just feed the rest of the game. Like, bro, what the fuck is wrong? League players are actually probably... Are League players more toxic than classic players? Like it's pretty fucking close. It's pretty close, dude.
Used to get one over on you in any way they possibly can. Of course, our mega servers are after this as well, with a lot more potential clowns in the circus. And to some degree, people get away with things and then can disappear into the crowd a little bit just because there's so many people around. Well, unless you track them down on Discord and publicly shame them, that is. But it's not all negative, despite it being possible, because in many instances where the game provides an issue, it also provides the solution. And that is that old school MMO feel really being at play here. Somebody holding a flag out of bounds on Warsong Gulch despite a fellow member of their team and try and get them to AFK out, and that player then waited 16 hours for the actual guy holding the flag to be banned. Guilds banded together to stop a certain guild from getting...
Yeah, by the way, that Druid Flagkeeper that held the flag for 16 hours, that was a friendly player.
Getting a Scarab Lord title after they abused the report feature, the buff coordination that goes on pretty much every server to get people set up for raid nights, and remembering legends who have left us during our journey. Classic is a real social experience, and it's difficult to get anywhere without others. Group quests, dungeons, raids, even PvP to an extent. And I'm sure you can all tell me a story of drama from your server, and with how free Classic is in terms of what you can do, that's the kind of environment it promotes and allows to exist. And without all these negative things either, I think we wouldn't have as much focus on the positives. But of course, a lot of the issues that Classic has was because how Blizzard opted to roll out the actual game. That being to use patch 1.12, the final progression patch of vanilla, skipping everything that came in between, as well as using server sizes which are easily between 2 to 4 times as large as the biggest servers were back in the day, which have proven to be a detriment to many areas of the game, like the Black Lotus example that we went over earlier. Patch 1.12 meant that every raid up to Naxxramas was pretty easy. We had static class balance. Never in World of Warcraft have I seen one class be so consistently dominant in certain areas of the game. Mages for AoE and gold farming, warriors for DPS, also warriors for tanking, and that power dynamic has not been addressed at all.
And warlocks for being incredibly handsome and having big dicks.
It really affects all aspects of the game. People often talk about how easy the game is and put it down to these two things. Would have a progressive Classic been better? Maybe we will end up seeing that one day, who knows. But Blizzard has been, by and large, pretty hands-off when it came to Classic, and unless something was really pushed into the public eye, it's been largely left to run its course. If Classic was still an actively developed game, which considered things like rebalancing and removing exploits, how many of the things players have discovered by this point in time do you think would have been addressed by now? Then again, when you start to look at...
That's a really good question. Let's pause for a minute. Okay. If in 2006 people were playing the game the same way they play it today, what would Blizzard change, right? Warrior / mage nerfs, world buff nerfs, pre-made nerfs, probably summoning alt nerfs. They'd probably have, like, I'll put AoE cap like next to the mage thing. AoE cap, yeah, exactly. What else would they do? What would they do? Honor system? I don't know. Like, I think the honor system actually was intended in patch. In fact, in the final patch of Classic, they did fix it, kind of. They made all the brackets wider. So if I can, like, explain this, where is MS Paint? You know, okay, in early vanilla WoW, the brackets were like this wide. Okay, and then they buffed them to be like this wide, if that makes sense. So you had more people allowed in each bracket, so it made ranking slightly easier. They did that in like the final patch of Classic WoW. So they did like try to address it, but then when TBC came out, they were like, yeah, fuck all that shit, fuck all of this, we're scrapping it. It's terrible. Anyway, yeah, like. Oh, yeah, there would be, like, consume changes, of course, because people are just, changes. Yeah, they would change a lot. Like, a lot of shit that people do in Classic, I would say, is, like, borderline exploitative gameplay, but obviously Blizzard's not going to do anything about it because no changes.
How many of those things are just TBC?
Yeah,
it's like when you have conversations around Classic Plus and people bring up, oh, we could have Karazhan in it, we could have the Caverns of Time, we could have Mount Hyjal, when all of those things are just TBC. Do you want Classic with no world buffs? That's TBC. Do you want Classic without consumable stacking? TBC. Do you want Classic with Mage AoE nerfed? That's TBC. Do you want Classic with a different or more competitive PvP system? That's TBC. You can see how TBC changed and addressed a lot of the issues that we are starting to see that players have either found out or just pushed into being a completely normal part of the game now. But maybe that is what makes Classic Classic. The fact that it is an absolute wild west of balance. There are random quest trinkets which can still be used up to later raid tiers. A level 44 pair of mail gloves, which are the best thing warrior DPS can wear for the near entirety of the game. This is Classic, where not everybody has mobility. Not everybody has an interrupt, not everybody has a DPS cooldown, not everybody has a defensive cooldown. Every hybrid is pigeonholed into being a healer through their tier gear. Warriors wear leather, and every single healer wears a blue dress for nearly the entirety of the game.
Nice.
Some specializations are considered a complete meme, whilst others are stacked in literally their dozens for speedruns. And I reckon that's what makes Classic classic. It's unrefined, it's unfiltered, it's full of overpowered, and it's full of underpowered. The lack of directed endgame, players making their own fun, the drama, personalities.
Classic is like going on Craigslist casual encounters and picking someone random and having unprotected sex with them. It's wild, it's crazy, it's hot, you never know what the fuck you're gonna get. Now, you know, playing retail is like, you know, doing extensive vetting and research off of your sexual partner and then wearing a condom and making sure she's on birth control. It's just fucking, it's just lame, dude. That shit's just lame. That's the best analogy.
It really does become its own beast, and I think it stood tall on its own 2 feet and cemented what got millions upon millions of people into this addicting franchise so many years ago. A classic overall, though, I couldn't be happier that it happened. That I got to go back, that I got to go and see what I missed. And even if I have changed and the player base has changed, there are some things which just never seem to truly age. I guess I'll be mainly focusing on the future of the game moving forwards, which is looking like it's going to be TBC. We will see what Blizzard decide to do with Classic, which I've done more than enough speculation on to reiterate here. Suffice to say, I'll keep my eyes out and keep you guys up to date the best I can. Would I hop straight back into a Classic fresh? I think I'd need a bit more time for sure, rather than jumping straight.
Quick rewind here. So back in phase 2, you know, we're still trying to run Molten Core on like Black Moon Layer and stuff. So we would, Jerome, you know, we all know the streamer No Hit Jerome. I don't know why he's called No Hit Jerome. We all know he's taking hits of everything, but he would sit here dead on all of his like 20 multi-boxed characters. Okay, he'd sit there dead. I love Jerome, but I'm kidding. I love Jerome, by the way. He would sit there dead and wait for a raid to come in, and then he would res and AoE all of them, right? And you can't, it's hard to counter because he's dead. Like, you can't throw a nade at him. He's dead. He's waiting there in ghost form, and then he reses on your raid, and he blows you up with all of his multi-box characters. In Power, we were like, hey, listen, yo. Anytime we want to go into the raid, we noticed, anytime someone donates to Jerome, he gets up, he does a dance, he freaks out, he puts his legs behind his head, he spurs out. So like, okay, anytime we're trying to get into Blackrock Mountain, let's just donate him $3. And he's going to get up and run around the room and do whatever the fuck he does. And then we just donate $3 and boom, we're in. No problem, dude. We did that for like months, man. You know, we probably paid Jerome like hundreds of dollars. Jerome was making bank doing that shit, actually. It was he's probably thought of that.
To reiterate here, suffice to say, I'll keep my eyes out and keep you guys up to date the best I can. Would I hop straight back into a Classic fresh? I think I'd need a bit more time for sure, rather than jumping straight back in and doing it all again. But that server launch feel will definitely be something that I would like to see again one day. I think I can say it's been an amazing ride, and I'm ready to see what happens next.
I want TBC to fuck my ass. I'm ready for it, baby. TBC daddy.
You already know by now with these really long videos that I'm going to be making an appearance at the end. I think at the end of the video I made it sound a bit like, well, that's Classic done now, you know, put it in its box, tie in a ribbon, put it to one side, let's play TBC. But that's not true for myself. I'll definitely be continuing to play it for some time to come, and we'll carry on covering it in whatever capacity it moves forwards. So I just want to say another thank you for continuing to support the channel over the whole duration of Classic. It's been amazing that I've been able to take something which I just started off doing as a hobby and a bit of fun into something I can support myself full time.
WillE's a good one, dude. I love Willie.
To have been able to do that. As well, I think it could be an interesting few years for the MMO genre as a whole. We have Mike Morheim, who's gone and set up his own company. We have Riot Games that are trying an MMO now, headed up by Greg Street, who's of course ex-Blizzard. We have TBC to be confirmed very soon, I would imagine. And in my mind, as soon as Blizzard say we're going to do TBC, they're also going to do Wrath of the Lich King. I don't even think that would come into question. So it could just be a bit of a return to form for the MMO genre as a whole. Who knows? Also, I just want to announce that I'm going to be launching a Patreon. It's something which I've been asked about on a number of occasions since I've started doing videos, so here we are. So far, my only source of income since been doing this full time, which has been since the start of Classic, has been through ad revenue on YouTube, which is inconsistent at the best of times, as I'm sure you're aware. So if you do like what I do and wanted to support me in another way, but don't like ads, let's be real, who does? Then that will be an option for you moving forwards. The intention won't be to paywall or restrict anything I do. I want everything I make to be fully visible to the widest audience possible, but I'll try and offer some small benefits, as in putting things out early, Q&As, maybe doing some polls on there, just some small benefits as an extra way of saying thank you for going above and beyond to support what I do. And of course, even if you consider it a small amount to donate, these times we're living in at the moment are uncertain at best, so take care of yourself and your loved ones first as our priority, please. One last thing, you may have noticed I've been posting videos a bit less regularly than usual as of recently, and let's just say it's not just in-game that I've been preparing for TBC. I've been putting a lot of effort into getting the new class series out, which should hopefully give you a good overview of all the different options there are moving forwards and what new toys you get, and well, there's just a huge amount of things for me to get done in general, so you should have that to look forwards to as well, coming very soon. That about wraps it up though. As always, thank you so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you in the next one very soon.
What is that face? Willie looks like a fucking Viking, man. Like, you know, like 1,000 years ago, his ancestors on the islands of Britain are sailing around, pillaging, you know, burning down people's thatch roof cottages. This motherfucker has a Viking blood, and here he is pumping out videos. He's pillaging in World of Warcraft. All right, he's keeping the pillaging going.